Hey y'all, welcome to Criminally Creative. Today is Monday, September 3rd. It's Labor Day here in the United States, and this is episode 8. Thank you for joining me. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoy it. If you are back again, I hope you continue to enjoy it and keep coming back. I should say my name is Susan. You can find me on Ravelry as Legal Eagle and also on Instagram as Criminally Creative Podcast. I also have a Ravelry group for the podcast, which is just Criminally Creative Podcast, I think. It's either Criminally Creative or Criminally Creative Podcast. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. That is also where I put the show notes from every episode with links to my projects that I'm working on and anything else I mentioned that I have a link to. So I am most active on Ravelry and sporadically on Instagram. So your best bet if you want to get in touch with me is either to send me a Ravelry message, or there's also an email for the podcast, which is Criminally Creative Podcast, all one word with no spaces, at gmail.com. So anyway, we'll get into the show. This week we're going to have hearsay, verdicts, court is in session, and discovery. So hopefully it's going to be a little bit shorter episode than last one, and we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start off with hearsay just to give you a little bit of update. It's been about 3 weeks since I podcast. I told you last time I was going to try to do this last weekend, but as I mentioned, I was at the beach by myself, which was great, and so I thought, oh, I'll have plenty of time. But as it turned out, I was just enjoying not having a whole lot to do and no time constraints and just being able to do whatever I wanted to do, and at the time just getting to look even semi-appropriate to sit in front of a camera and do a podcast just didn't happen. I did hang out with my friend Peggy on Saturday, and we had a great time. I really had planned to make her record some with me and show you some of what she was working on, but again, I just didn't get around to it, didn't get my stuff together, and didn't feel like I could make her sit down and talk to y'all when I wasn't coordinated enough to do it. So, but I did enjoy a few days at the beach, and it was nice to relax and just unwind a little bit. While I was at the beach, the General Assembly decided to go back into another extra session, which fortunately I did not have to leave the beach early to go back, but of course as soon as I got back to work on Monday, I had a meeting to go to. But they did manage to wrap that up Monday, so it wasn't too big of a deal time-wise. On the other hand, I now have a committee that has decided that it needs to hold meetings across the state over the next few weeks. And all of them are going to be on Friday afternoons. I don't have to attend all of them, but I am going to have to attend. I went to one last Thursday in Charlotte. I am going to have to attend a couple more over the next few weeks. The next one being this coming Friday in Boone from 4 to 7 p.m. So if you happen to be a North Carolina native, keep an eye out for General Assembly meetings if you're interested. Anyway, so work is, we're in the interim right now, and work is busy, but not super crazy, horribly busy at the moment. But this past week, personally at home, has kind of been like, the rule of threes. Hopefully we're at 3 and we're not having any more. On Tuesday night, we got home and realized that our air conditioner in the main part of the house was not blowing cold air. If you don't live in the South, you may not realize that right now it is 95 degrees or so here every day with a gazillion% humidity. Fortunately for us, we actually have 2 heat pumps, one that does the upstairs floor where our bedroom is, and then another that does the main living area and the basement. It was the main living area and the basement one that had a problem. So it was warm when we were in the living room, but we have ceiling fans that helped a little bit. But at least when we were sleeping at night, we had air conditioning, and we just shut the door so that it trapped the cool air and didn't try to work overtime. But because of some things going on with me with work and Rob with work, that was Tuesday night we realized that. But it was Friday before one of us could be here for them to come and repair it. It turned out just to be a capacitor. It wasn't a big deal as far as repair went, and hopefully not too expensive a repair, but it was quite warm in here for a couple of days. On top of that, my husband has got to have his rear window on his truck replaced because of something that's gone wrong in one of the sensors in that has to do with the defrost, and once it starts getting cold, that will be a bigger issue as far as him being able to see out the back window. So that's coming up this next week. And then, of course, yesterday as I was doing laundry, our dryer decided to die. Now, I will say our washer and dryer set are 17 and a half years old. We bought them when we moved into this house in 2001. So we knew that they were going to go any day, but as long as they were still working, we were willing to go with it. But the dryer, I got all the laundry done yesterday, except I washed a lot of sheets and put them in the dryer, and it wouldn't start. And then we started realizing that it was overheated and it just was dead. But like I said, 17 and a half years, not complaining about that. So we spent a chunk of today going to Lowe's to pick out a new washer and dryer. Because again, the washer's still working, but it's 17 and a half years old. I'm just going to go ahead. We just bought a new set, and we'll get rid of the old ones. And we bought that today, but cannot be delivered until next Saturday. But that should be good, because I usually do laundry on Sunday. So anyway, like I said, that's 3. We're hoping that's it. No more. You know, hopefully nothing else is going to die in the next week or month or whatever. So anyway, so that's kind of the way my life's been these days. You know, just something always going on. But I have gotten some knitting done. Most of it I got finished at the beach, but I've gotten a little bit done here and there. So let's get on straight to the verdicts. Hey guys, it's me again. I just want to stick this in here because I forgot to show y'all my t-shirt that I'm wearing today, which I thought y'all would get a kick out of, and I don't think I've showed this one today. So it says, a question asked while I am counting stitches will be answered with louder counting. Just thought y'all get a kick out of that and wanted to show it to you. Talk to you later. Bye. First thing that I'm going to show you that I finished is I finished a pair of socks. This is Nomadic Yarns, is the yarn dyer. The colorway is her Hermione colorway. These are called Nomadic Hermione on my projects page. And I'll say again, I am very good at creating project pages for everything that I do on Ravelry that will show you yarn usage, because I do weigh my yarn and try to calculate as close as possible the actual yardage used in a project, needle sizes, and in almost all cases, unless I just forget, a picture of the finished object as well. Although, you know, my photography skills are not the greatest, so sometimes it's just a crappy picture, but it is a picture. This is just a basic vanilla sock with Fish Lips Kiss heel. And not much else to it. So just a pair of socks that I finished. I also finished the 3rd Lucerne hat of the 4 that I'm in the process of making. Y'all have seen 2. If you've watched before, you've seen 2 of these before. Same colors, just different order of colors. This is a pattern by Jaron Flood. I'm doing it in Brooklyn Tweed Peary, which is their newer worsted spun fingering weight. And because I'm doing 4 colors, I am going to be able to get 4 hats out of this, just alternating what's the main color and this. Again, I have a Ravelry project page that will show you pictures of all 3 that I've done so far, and I have started the 4th one, which I'm probably not going to show you today because I've only done just a little bit of the rib, but the main color of it will be the green. I don't remember all the colorway names, and I didn't write them down today. The blue is Admiral, I know. I believe that this burgundy-ish color is called Aurora, but I'm not positive about that. But again, Ravelry project page has all the color names on it as well, and notes at the bottom as far as how much yardage I've used on each of them. Again, these hats are Christmas presents for my family. I haven't decided. I don't know that I'm going to decide which one goes to who. I may just kind of put them out there and let everybody pick which colors they like. But mostly, I think most of these colors are more manly, and that was my intent for some of the men to get one. So that's number 3 of the Lucerne hats, and hopefully I will have 4 done before long. I made a few dishcloths. These are, so a couple things. One, I have decided, this may be a southern thing, it may be the way I was raised, I don't know, but we do, on the street that we live on, we do neighbor gifts at Christmas time. and they're nothing big. Most years when I do bake Christmas goodies, then I bake enough that I just send each neighbor a little variety, of the Christmas goodies that I've made, and put them, and I go to a Dollar Tree or somewhere and buy a cute little tin or whatever and put them in. This year, for whatever reason, I have decided that everybody's going to get a dishcloth in some kind of Christmas color. These are made out of Knit Picks Dishy in the Jingle colorway. The ends are woven in, but these have not been washed yet, because I washed these in the washer and dryer, and as previously mentioned, dryer died, so they didn't get washed yesterday. They will get washed in the next week or so, but I think I haven't decided fully what they're going to get. I'm not just giving neighbors a dishcloth. Right now my plan is that I'm probably going to make up a big batch of Russian tea, and if you don't know what Russian tea is, you can Google, and there's a bunch of recipes online. The recipe that I use is primarily Tang instant, like unsweet instant tea, some sugar, some cinnamon, some clove, and so I'm probably going to make a big batch of that and give each neighbor like a mason jar of that with a dishcloth over the top or something. That's my current idea. I haven't figured out for sure. I'm planning to make about 2 dishcloths per neighbor, so we'll see. Hopefully I'll find some cute way to put it together. But also I thought these are a good example of how your gauge can change depending on how you're feeling, how you're knitting at the time. If you notice, there's 2 of these that I made, probably a week or so ago. They're about the same size. They're kind of loose and floppy. I was probably nice and relaxed. And I made this one the other night, and I was apparently a little bit more tense or something, because it is the exact same stitch count as these. But hopefully you can see how much smaller that one in the front is. That is the exact same stitch count, exact same size needles, exact same yarn, but a lot smaller than the other 2. I actually like the fabric of the denser one better, so I'm going to try going forward to knit them a little snugger, more at that gauge. But anyway, so that's a start on Christmas gifts for the neighbors. I also finished I guess it's Casu, C-A-S-U, Cow, by Galia Lael. This was a pretty simple mindless knit. I showed you this last time, and I showed you where I had kind of messed up, and you can see it if you look. But again, that's one of those errors that I didn't realize till I was further along, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not all that noticeable to me. I can find it because I know it's there, but it's one of those things I let go. Anyway, I finished this. This is just a loop cowl. It's big enough to wrap and be really snug. I knit this for the Old North State Knitting Guild out of Raleigh. We do donations to the Foster Care for Success program, which sends Valentine's Day packages to young adults who were in foster care who have aged out but are in college now. It sends them Valentine's packages, and they always enclose a red scarf, and this year they've allowed cowls. So I knit this, and this is just seed stitch and then a little lace mesh part. This was knit as one long piece, and then I blocked it, and then the pattern calls for you to actually graft it, like Kitchener stitch, graft it together. I wasn't feeling that industrious, so I just did a 3 needle bind off. I'll flip that inside out so you can see which does create a little more of a seam than grafting it would have, but I really, I think it really didn't matter, and it was a little bit faster to do it that way. So so that is another thing that I finished. And the last knitting item that I finished was I finished the Crown Wools Mystery Knit Along. If you are knitting the Crown Wools Mystery Knit Along and you have not finished and you don't want to be spoiled, then turn away for a few minutes because I'm going to show my completely finished one. This was 12 clues that came out 2 clues a week for 6 weeks, and it was designed to use mini skeins. I used a combination of some leftover yarn, some mini skeins, and then a couple of skeins that were full skeins that I just used part of. I have been through all the different yarns that are in this in detail before. Again, it's on my Ravelry project page. It has all of the different yarns that I used except for the one, well, it has a reference to. There's one of these I don't really know what it is because it was left over from something. And also the quantities that I used by my best estimate using weighing. So this is designed to be a shawl, a rectangle, well, kind of a, what's that, parallelogram. So it's, now let's see if I can hold it up. It's slanted. Like angled on one end, and then the opposite end is the opposite angle. I knit the shorter version, and I also knit on, I believe, a needle size smaller than recommended because I tend to be a looser knitter. But also I knew due to the length of this, I would not wear it as a shawl. I'm going to wear it more as a scarf, so I did not want it too wide. I did block a little bit of width into it, but I didn't worry about stretching it very wide because I will probably never really use it as a wrapper on my shoulders. It will probably be worn more as a scarf. So let me see if I can show you this. So the first, this is Bajola in I believe the Maldives colorway, just a little bit of texture. Then you get a little bit of lacy section. That blue is Tosh Sock in Baltic. And then another kind of textured section in that variegated, that is abstract, no, not abstract fiber, Verdant Griffin in, I think, Sedona Sunset colorway. The purple, which is a little bit of feather and fan lace, and the orange, which is another little kind of eyelet lace, but with some texture. Both of those are abstract fiber from a mini skein set that I had. The green, which is a little bit of texture, is Tosh Sock in the Jade colorway. The brown has some little slip stitches. The brown is the one I don't know what yarn that is exactly. I have a couple guesses, but I think it's a leftover somebody gave me, and I'm not real sure. This orange, more texture, is also from the Abstract Fiber mini skein set. A little bit of lace in Fiber Studio Yarns to Die For Painted Elephant colorway. I don't remember the yarn blend. That was a remnant that my friend Peggy gave me. The plummy purple is more texture, and the cable of the bright pink, both of those are from that same Abstract Fiber mini skein kit. And then the last pink textured section is more Tosh Sock in the Posy colorway. So this, I mean, I like the way it came out, and I will, you know, it's nice and long for a scarf. Probably what I will do most of the time is wear it halved with a loop, and either like this if I just want a warmth in my coat, or the other thing that I do sometimes is put one through the loop and then twist the loop and put the other end through, and then that kind of, if you want something that's more, when you're not wearing a coat and you want it to be more decorative or that sort of thing. So that's what I do a lot of times with the longer ones. And I didn't, it's hard to tell on my little screen here exactly which way it's facing. You know, if I wanted to wear it like to work or something like this, I would make more effort to make it, make the right side showing out, and, you know, kind of see all the colors and stuff. But anyway, I like the way it turned out. I'm happy with it. It'll be a bright, colorful accessory this winter. So that is all the knitting, but I actually did finish some spinning. I told you before I was spinning 2 braids of Fiber Studio Yarns to Die For Australian Superwash Merino that I bought at the Carolina Fiber Frolic, the spring this year, in the Frolic colorway. And one braid was mostly a really light gray with pops of color, and the other was more saturated of the same colors that were the pops in the light gray. So I spun a single of each braid, and then I applied the two together. And I will, well, let me talk about them first. So I got a lot of yards. Excuse me just a minute. So I got 1,482 yards of 2-ply. This is the bulk of it. Try to see where you can. So it did work as I kind of hoped, where the mostly gray background of the one braid toned down a little bit of the color, so I got overall a yeah, it's definitely colorful, but it's kind of a muted, it's, I don't know, muted colorful, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea what it's going to be. The weight of the yarn is probably, I would say, well, you know, I'm not extremely consistent, so it's fingering to heavy fingering to maybe even close to sport in a couple of places. I have the two large skeins. I have one little skein that is exactly like that, and I'll explain how that happened in just a minute. This is, you know, at least for me, I never have two bobbins that are even. Even though in this case I was spinning two separate braids, so I had more left over of the braid that was mostly light gray, and so then I just 2-plied it back on itself, and so you can see that this one is, oops, sorry. Hopefully you can see that this one is a lot lighter than this. So this one is only the braid that was the light gray with pops of color, and this one is that same stuff but plied with the braid that was much more saturated. So I've got that left over. And this little skein is the little bit, so I wanted, if you're a spinner, you may or may not be familiar with the Acreworks 3D printed bobbins. And I love Acreworks as a company in general. My Lazy Kate is Acreworks, and I have just bought one of their butterfly Kates, which I used actually to unwind some plied yarn off onto my skein winder to measure, but I've just gotten it and hadn't had much chance to play with it. So, but the Acreworks bobbins do not work for me on the two wheels I have, and I don't know if it is, it could be a variety of different things. So I'm not really trying to say Acreworks bobbins are horrible or anything. I want to love Acreworks bobbins. I love the fact that they're fun, they're colorful, they're lightweight, they break down, so they pack easily, so if you want to take them somewhere. But I haven't had much success using them on my two wheels. I ordered some for my Ashford Joy, which is my treadle wheel, and the problem that they spin just fine with that. The problem I have with that is the brake band on that is that thin fishing line type brake band, and so it really digs into the plastic of the 3D printed bobbin, which means it has a lot of take up. It's really strong and almost practically trying to yank the yarn out of my hand, no matter how lightly I have the brake band set. And the other thing is that brake band like grooves into, which is probably the problem with why it's doing such a strong take up. It's like it digs a little channel, and so there's like this little plastic dust everywhere. So I think in that case it's a matter of the type of brake band that I have on my Joy, which as far as I know is the appropriate type of brake band for the Joy. I did buy my Joy used, but it's the same type I've seen on other Joys. So that doesn't really work for me on the Joy. I have not bought any for the Hanson because of my experience with the Joy, but my friend Peggy loaned me one that she had bought for the Hanson and for the Woolly Winder on the Hanson specifically. And the problem with it, the Woolly Winder bobbin for the Hanson, now I don't know if I wasn't using a Woolly Winder, it might not be an issue. But with the Woolly Winder problem is it the bobbin is so light, I guess. I'm not sure that's exactly the reason. This is my non-scientific mind hypothesizing. So if you've seen a Woolly Winder, it's not really a gear, but there's like a toothed thing that's on the flyer and a toothed thing on the end of the bobbin, and between the two of them, they kind of create a gear, which is what makes the yarn guide go back and forth and put the yarn more evenly onto the bobbin. The problem with the Acreworks bobbin on the Woolly Winder on the Hanson that I have had, and that Peggy said she had the same, is that the end of the bobbin will not stay up with where the teeth of on the flyer are and keep the thing turning. So it tends to shift back too far to where that's not catching, and that means the Woolly Winder thing is not shifting, and so you end up with yarn all lumped to one place. And with the Hanson, the flyer's going fast enough that you don't really realize that till you see the yarn starting to build up. So the reason for this is because this was when I was trying. I had done I had plied one regular bobbin of the 2-ply and filled it up, and so I put in the Acreworks bobbin. I was going to use it, and this is about all I could stand before it not staying in place just annoyed the crap out of me, and I had to take it off. So I didn't want to wait, I'm not going to waste the yarn. So I did eventually wind it off and count it. It will be a good little sample skein for when when I decide what this might be. This will be my skein that I used to swatch with, because it is exactly like the other yarn. I just couldn't handle that Acreworks bobbin on there. And again, I love Acreworks as a company, and I love a lot of their products, but so certainly if you have a different kind of wheel or a different kind of flyer, give them a try, but they just haven't worked for me. So so all of that was everything I got done before Stash Dash ended. Stash Dash ended on Monday, August 27th. If you don't know, Stash Dash is an event that the Knit Girls do every summer while Laura is out of school. It started this year on May 25th and ended on August 27th, so about 3 months. And it's competition against yourself to try to knit, spin, crochet, whatever, as much meterage as you can. And there are different kind of levels of competition, but again, you're really just competing against yourself. There's a few prizes, but I don't, tons of people do it. There very few people win prizes compared to the number of people that participate. My goal this year was 10,000 meters, and I did get it. The spinning this year, instead of counting just the finished meterage, which was, like I said, 1,482 yards, but then you convert it to meters, which I don't remember what that was, 1355 or something. Last year, that's what it would have counted for, was 1,482 yards. But this year they used Spinzilla rules, which means that for a 2, you get to count the yardage that goes through the orifice. So for a 2-ply, that means you take the yardage times 3. So you spun, if you ended up with 1,482 yards, then theoretically you spun one 1,482 yard single, another 1,482 yard single, and then you plied it, another 1,482 yards went through your orifice. Now in reality, the 2 singles are probably much longer than 1,482 yards, because when you plied it takes up some of the length. But so basically for a 2-ply, you take the ending yardage and you multiply times 3. If you did a 3-ply, it'd be times 4, that sort of thing. But it's the amount of yardage that, now that's for a traditional. Now if you did a, well, I guess if you did a chain ply, it would be the same thing, because your yardage would be much shorter, but it would still be, yeah. So anyway, it's calculated essentially the yardage that goes through your orifice, not just the finished yardage. So as a result of that, that was a lot more than 1,482. I didn't write down offhand. But anyway, my total meterages, I keep talking in yardages because that's what I know, but the competition is actually in meterages, in meters, and I kept having to convert. But my total meters for Stash Dash was 12,737.25 meters. So definitely got over my 10,000 meter goal. So I was really happy about that, and would not have been able to do it without the spinning, but I did do it. I also have one more spinning project that I have done since Stash Dash ended. Because my default tends to be thin, it usually takes me a long time, as you see from me talking about this before, to finish most spinning projects, because I spin thin. It takes longer to do. But I needed kind of a palette cleanser after that, so I grabbed a braid created by LCB, who is one of the fiber dyers that I really like. Her color sense and everything. This is Targhee bamboo and silk. Targhee, I don't know, I'd say Targhee, which is a type of wool, breed of sheep. I think this is an 80-10-10. The colorway is Winter's Eve, and this was 4 ounces, and this is spun, it took me less than 3 hours to do both singles and ply this 4 ounces, because I spun it much chunkier, bulkier, just to, again, like a palette cleanser. It's kind of hard. It looks, I think it's probably showing up mostly gray, but there is, I don't know if you can see, there are different shades of gray, but there's, maybe that one will show. There's also, there, that's kind of gives you kind of a really deep, dusty plum color that in lighter purples that runs through it occasionally. So that it's a very, I mean, Winter's Eve, which is the name, to me is very descriptive. If you envision, you know, like a snowy outside just after dusk when most of the color is gone from the sky, but just a little bit is left. So this is a, yeah, it's probably a worsted to Aran weight. Again, no, I rarely know what I'm going to do with my hand spun. I just, in part because I'm not really consistent enough to plan too well for what it's going to be. I tend to spin the yarn and then decide what it's going to be, depending on what actually comes out. For this, it's 100, like I said, 182 yards, which should be enough probably to get a hat out of it. So I'm thinking maybe a hat. Targhee is very springy and bouncy. So anyway, so I did do a little bit more spinning. That did not count on my Stash Dash, but that is something else that I have finished. So for Court and Session today, I'm really only going to show you one project. I do have several projects on the needles, obviously, but because of everything that I finished, most of my knitting time was spent on those. And the other projects that I have on the needles, while I have done a little bit of work on, they really don't look much different from the last time I showed you. So I'm not going to do that, except for this one project. I did cast on a new shawl, and the shawl is called Walk Your Way. I'll pull up here on my iPad. This is a pattern by Melanie Berg. It's a 2-color shawl. As you can see, it's mostly garter striping with a little bit of lace. And I had this yarn. My friend Kristen is a yarn and fiber dyer, but she only does it really to vend a couple places. She does not have a website or anything, but she always vends at SAF. And she called asking me if I had used this yarn I bought from her at SAF. Ooh, I'm losing a stitch there. Because she needed to order some more yarn, and she was trying to decide whether or not this base was appropriate to, whether or not she liked this base enough to order anymore. And let me put this, had dropped a stitch there. I needed to get back on there. So anyway, I had interestingly enough, I had just been looking at this yarn a couple weeks before because, you know, Yarn Stash. Yes, I had bought yarn from her a year ago, but I had not cast any of it on. But I had actually been looking at this yarn, thinking about a shawl before she called, and so I decided to go ahead and cast that on. And I didn't really have an easy shawl pattern on the needle, so excuse me. So I cast on Walk Your Way, and this is a very subtle color change. This is in Kristen's fiber. It's a 75 superwash merino, 25 nylon blend. And you can see it's basically just garter ridges with a little bit of eyelet so far. The two colors are Cornflower, which is what I call a blurple. And I actually have a sweater's quantity of both these colors in, well, in DK weight that I'm going to do, eventually do probably the Joji Locatelli Radiate sweater in. And then the other color is Periwinkle. So they're definitely just a lighter and darker kind of version. The Periwinkle's very periwinkle. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. So I have a sweater's quantity, like I said, of these colors because I loved these colors so much. These are her colors from SAF last year. What she and another friend of mine, Jan Smiley, do usually is they share a booth at SAF. So Kristen will dye yarn and usually some fiber to coordinate with a bag that Jan will make. So they don't necessarily do it as a kit because they vend in the same booth, but they keep their sales separate. Or at least I think they do. But anyway, so although Jan will have several different styles of fabric of bags, there's always one that kind of coordinates with the colors that Kristen has dyed some of her yarn and fiber. So these were kind of last year's color palette. There was a couple other colors too, but like I said, I got a sweater quantity in DK of primarily this with this color as the top, or as the accent, that, like I said, I think is going to be a Joji Locatelli Radiate sweater when I get around to casting it on, along with all the other sweater quantities of yarn I have plans for. But anyway, so that, like I said, it's a 75-25. It's, you know, I am not super picky about blends of yarn as long as it feels nice. I know some people are like, oh, I really prefer an 80-20. The 75-25, 80-20 doesn't matter much to me. I mean, 80-20 tends to be a little bit plumper, but for most of what I do use stuff for, that doesn't really matter. It's more about the colors of the yarn to me, and I love these, and I love them together. I have seen Kristen's color palette for SAF, and all I will say is if you like fall colors, you're going to love her color palette. I'm already kind of plotting, looking at possible sweaters to buy yarn for to do some color work. So anyway, so this is Walk Your Way. Again, like I said, the pattern is by Melanie Berg. I am doing this on US 3.25 needles. I have it in a Fat Squirrel bag, her library card. This is her, I think she calls this her super sock. It's a little bit bigger sock size bag. And I don't think I told you any of that stuff I showed you I finished. I don't think I told you needle sizes for, but again, my Ravelry project pages has all that on there, and feel free to ask any additional questions that might not cover. So like I said, there are other projects I have worked a little bit on, but not enough to show you any progress, so I'm not going to take the time to do that today. My goals mainly for September, my friend Christine's sweater that I've mentioned before, I have restarted the sleeves on those, and I have gotten the ribbing done and started on just the stockinette. I hope to actually finish that this month. For the past couple of months, I kept saying, finish Christine's sweater, and I haven't. But this month, I'm really going to try to get that completely done, or at least very, very close to it. I hope to finish the 4th Lucerne hat this month, and then my other kind of focus goal is to make some significant progress on the Galena snowflake scarf that I am working on, so that I will have, if I don't get it finished by SAF, at least we'll have some significant progress to show her, since I'm taking another class with her. I just wanted to kind of show her that I learned something from her class last year. So that's kind of my goals for September. I wanted to talk, oops, sorry, shaking the camera a little bit. Wanted to talk just briefly about a couple of projects that are probably going to be on my needle soon as well. So I'll move straight into discovery. The Casu cow that I showed you, as I mentioned, is a red scarf for the Foster Care to Success program. I also have, I think that's this one. Actually, I will show you this yarn. That was done in Cascade 220 Ruby. I also have this Cascade 220, I don't remember the colorway name, and it's not on here, but it's more of a burgundy-ish. So I'm planning to knit this as an actual scarf, because this is a little more manly color to me. So I'm going to knit that as an actual scarf for that same program. And I believe, let me pull it up here, that what I'm going to do is, this pattern is called 170, like 170, and it's by Dragonfly Designs, which is not Dragonfly Fibers, I don't think. I'll look in a second. And it's just a basically ribbed scarf, but it's ribbed on the slant. So I just thought that would be, you know, a nice kind of manly, simple, not completely boring, because there'll be a little bit of ribbing in the angle, so the, you know, it'll change a little bit. Scarf to do for that donation thing. Dragonfly Designs. Yeah, I don't think, she's got quite a few patterns, but I don't think I've ever done anything by her. But anyway, so I think that's probably what that yarn is going to be, and that will probably get cast on pretty soon, to be another kind of not carry around project. And the other thing that I am planning to cast on soon is, I showed y'all this book, Henry's Hat, that I bought. I keep covering my mouth trying to get in the screen. There we go. Excuse me. Henry's Hat by Joanna Johnson and Eric Johnson. Joanna Johnson is the author. Eric Johnson is the illustrator. They are a married couple. I bought this at Maryland Sheep and Wool, and she has several books that are all very cute. And I probably will get them all eventually if this goes over like I hope it does. So anyway, Henry's Hat is a story about Henry the Chipmunk, and he lost his favorite hat. He goes around looking for his favorite hat, and anyway, at the end of the story is, I think his grandma or somebody gives him a new hat. But it has patterns with it, and so I got this. My plan, my youngest grandson, Alden, is about 15 months old. So I am going to, my plan is to knit Henry's Hat. Whoops. And hopefully I'm not going to show you long enough to give away any secret sauce. So I'm actually going to knit it in this blue. And then I'm actually also going to knit, try not to mess the book up, the Chipmunk. So Alden will get the stuffed chipmunk and then the hat from the book as well. I have ordered the yarn for that. I really, really liked the look of the yarn that was done in, so I decided for this to go ahead and order the actual yarn that the patterns were done in, which was more difficult than I thought it would be. It is Lana Loft worsted by Brown Sheep. But anyway, the particular put up of the yarn, it was hard to find an online, none of my local shops carry it, and it was hard to find an online vendor that actually had all the colors I needed. Woolery carries it, but only in cones, and they're like huge, and it was a lot more yardage than I needed. And a lot of the vendors I found online would have, particularly the blue was the hardest, that light blue that I wanted to do the hat in, and so I need at least 2 skeins of, was the hardest to find. And then I found a couple of vendors that had that, but they didn't have all the other colors I needed. And anyway, I finally found one vendor that is Yarn Shop up in Michigan, or no, Illinois, I don't remember where now, that I ordered it from. But I have not even gotten a shipping notice yet, so I'm crossing my fingers that what was on their website they actually do have in stock, and maybe they're just on vacation, I don't know, or backlogged. Hopefully, if I don't hear from them, I got a confirmation of my order, but that was, I want to say, almost last Monday, and I still haven't received a shipping notice yet, so I'm hoping that that's gonna come through soon. And if it doesn't, I'll have to figure something else out. But so those are probably my next 2 cast-ons, unless I just get an urge to do something else. I will probably wind up some sock yarn and start another pair of socks as well, just to right now that Walk Your Way shawl is what's toting around in my purse, because I'm at a very easy section to just knit and stop, but it's going to get to some lace at some point, and I probably won't be as good purse knitting. So I need to wind up some yarn for some socks for that. So anyway, I think that is about it for things to show you. I don't have anything really about books today. Again, I'm still very much in fluff reading on my Kindle, and listening to mysteries and stuff on my commute through Audible. I'm trying out a couple of new series and haven't really settled on one yet, so once I do, I'll talk about that. I did mention at the beginning, I do have a Ravelry group for the podcast. If you are watching and you're enjoying it, I would appreciate it if you chime in there occasionally. I am going to start a thread there that's going to be kind of a question/topic suggestions thread. So if you have any questions for me, or if you have something you'd like for me to talk about, or a suggestion, because you know, I'm not giving you information you want me to give you about the projects I'm working on. The other thing, if you happen to be a video podcaster, Wendy, I'm talking to you. I would love to hear, if you have a Windows-based laptop, what editing software you are using. I am, as I mentioned last time, I finally figured out how to get the video from my phone to my laptop without having to upload it through Dropbox first, and that worked pretty well last time. It still took a while, but it took about 1/3 of the time that it was taking me to upload through Dropbox. But I am currently also using just the Windows editing software that is available on Windows 10, and it is very limited. I would like to find something that is a little bit more functional, has a few more options. I have done some online searching. There are quite a few programs that offer kind of a free trial. I haven't gotten around to playing with any of them yet. But they all seem to have features that you have to pay to get, and I'm not opposed to paying for something. I don't want to pay for something and then figure out it doesn't work for me, or if it's too complicated, or whatever. So I'm looking for suggestions of what people have and use, just to help me narrow down what I want to try out, what I might want to buy, that sort of thing. So and so if you have any suggestions to towards that end, please let me know. But I do have a Windows 10 computer, so if it's a Mac thing, please don't tell me I can do it with iMovie on my phone or my iPad. The screen's too small, my eyes are getting old. I want to be able to do it on my laptop, so it does need to be Windows 10. It does need to work for Windows 10. So anyway, I think that's all. Hopefully I will... well, actually, I was going to say, hopefully I'll be back in 2 weeks, but I know that in 2 weeks, our daughter and her husband have just bought their first house, and we'll be moving that weekend, so I may actually not get recorded that weekend, but hopefully around that 2-week time frame, I will get another recording in and get it posted. And but until then, I hope you enjoy what you're working on, and we'll talk to you later. Bye, y'all.